Introduction: The pain of inconsistency. Let's be honest, being inconsistent sucks. Not because you're weak, not because you're lazy, but because deep down, you know you're capable of more. And yet, you keep starting and stopping. You get excited, then fade. You promise yourself, this time will be different, but after a few days or weeks, the old patterns come back. You fall off. You feel guilty. You say you'll get back on track Monday. Sound familiar? This audiobook isn't here to sugarcoat anything. You don't need more motivational fluff. You need the truth and a system that works when your motivation doesn't. Here's the truth. Consistency is not about feeling ready. It's not about waking up inspired every morning. It's about doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. Especially when you don't feel like it. The people you admire, the ones who seem unstoppable, they're not special. They're not always motivated. They've just trained themselves to act, regardless of mood, energy, or excuses. They've learned to shut down the inner debate. They've learned to show up on the bad days. They've learned to force it until it becomes natural. That's what this audiobook is about. It's about rewiring your brain so that consistency becomes part of your identity, not something you have to hype yourself up for. It's about building the mental toughness to stick with your habits, your goals, your standards, whether you're tired, distracted, or tempted to quit. In the next 6 chapters, you're going to learn how to stop negotiating with yourself, how to master the power of daily reps, how to stay consistent when life isn't perfect, how to track your habits without getting obsessed, and how to build an identity so strong. Falling off simply isn't an option anymore. This is your wake-up call, your reset button, your personal system upgrade. You tried hoping for motivation. Now it's time to build something better, discipline on demand. Let's get started. Chapter 1. Stop negotiating with yourself. Every day, your alarm goes off. Every day, the voice in your head starts talking. Just 5 more minutes. I'll work out tomorrow. I'll do it later, when I'm more in the mood. Sound familiar? That voice is a negotiator. And if you don't learn how to shut it down, it will run your life. The first step to consistency isn't motivation. It's mental discipline. It's building the skill of doing what needs to be done, even when your feelings scream, no. And that starts with this simple rule. Stop negotiating with yourself. When you constantly ask yourself, do I feel like it today? You've already lost, because your brain is hardwired to choose the path of least resistance. Comfort, ease, safety, and it's damn good at selling you on it. But here's the truth. Your feelings are not in charge. Your standards are. You have to train your mind to follow your decisions, not your emotions. Think about it like this. When you say you're going to work out at 6 a.m., that's not a suggestion. It's an appointment. When you decide to write every day, that's not a hope. It's a non-negotiable. Most people live in reaction mode. They let their emotions vote on every action. But if you want to build consistency, you have to become the kind of person who follows through, regardless of how you feel. That doesn't mean you ignore rest or push until you break. It means you take control of the moment where your brain wants a bargain, and you say, no, we're doing this. That moment is your mental fork in the road. Either you lean into the discomfort and do the thing, or you slide into delay, regret, and another broken promise to yourself. Here's the good news. You only have to win that moment. Not the whole week, not the whole year, just that one decision. Over and over again. The more times you do it, the stronger that mental muscle gets. It becomes easier, faster, sharper. You start identifying as someone who doesn't break promises to themselves. That's where real confidence comes from. Not hype, not external praise, just keeping your own word. So how do you stop negotiating? You make a rule. When I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Period. And yeah, you'll still hear the voice sometimes. The lazy one, the tired one, the I deserve a break one. But now, instead of debating with it, you respond with action. Because action is the antidote to negotiation. Once you move, the voice loses its power. You take control back. And here's the real shift. Every time you stop negotiating and start executing, your identity changes. You stop being someone who hopes to be consistent, and you become someone who is consistent. So here's your challenge. Pick one thing, one small task you've been avoiding, and do it today with 0 negotiation. Don't wait to feel ready. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't overthink. Just do it. Then repeat tomorrow, because that's how consistency is built, one no to the negotiator at a time. Chapter 2. The power of daily reps. Everyone wants to be great at something. Everyone wants results, discipline, fitness, success, peace, consistency. But very few are willing to do the most important thing. Repeat. Over and over. Even when it's boring. Even when it's small. Even when no one's watching. That's the real secret. Daily reps. The people who in long term don't rely on bursts of inspiration. They build routines, systems. They don't look for the perfect day to start. They make today count. Even if it's just 5 minutes. Because greatness doesn't come from doing big things once. It comes from doing small things consistently. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't skip it just because you're tired. You don't wait until you're in the mood. You just do it. It's part of your life. You don't need to feel hyped to make it happen. That's the level of normal you want with your habits. You work out because it's what you do, not because you're chasing a six-pack. You write, you read, you create, not because you're inspired, but because it's who you are. Daily reps are the difference between dabblers and doers. Dabblers start big and quit fast. Doers show up small, but don't stop. And here's the truth. Repetition rewires your brain. Every time you follow through, you reinforce a new identity. You teach your mind, this is what we do now. And that identity starts stacking. Suddenly, you don't need to force it as hard. The friction lowers. The habit sticks. So here's the shift. Stop aiming for perfect days. Start aiming for streaks. Forget the outcome. Focus on the process. Ask yourself daily, did I show up? Did I get my rep in? Did I keep the promise? It could be a 10-minute workout, 1 page in a book, 10 minutes of focused work. Whatever it is, keep it small, but keep it consistent. Because the point isn't to impress anyone. The point is to build momentum and protect it at all costs. Even on your worst days, show up. Even when you're tired, show up. Even when it's not perfect, show up. That's what separates the disciplined from the inconsistent. The consistent ones understand it's not about doing more. It's about doing something. So if you're struggling to stay on track, zoom all the way in. Don't ask, how can I change my life? Ask, what's one rep I can hit today, no matter what? Then do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. Because the power isn't in the size of the rep. It's in the fact that you keep going. Chapter 3. Burn the plan, keep the habit. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your plan will fall apart. Life is going to throw things at you. You'll get sick, lose motivation, get busy, get distracted, lose momentum. It happens. The problem is, most people collapse when that happens because they tie their consistency to the plan, not to the habit. They think, if I miss a workout, I've failed. If I can't follow my full morning routine, I might as well skip it entirely. If it's not done exactly how I planned it, it doesn't count. That's perfectionism disguised as productivity. And it's killing your consistency. Let me tell you something real. Your plan is allowed to break. Your habit isn't. Plans should be flexible. Habits should be unshakable. That means if life throws a wrench in your routine, you don't quit. You pivot. You don't shut down the system. You adjust and keep the streak alive. Let's say you usually work out for 45 minutes in the morning, but you wake up late, your schedule's tight, and your energy is low. Most people would say, guess I'll skip today and start fresh tomorrow. That's the wrong mindset. A high performer says, I don't need 45 minutes. I need 5. Drop and do push-ups, squats, stretch, walk, do something. Because the goal is no longer perfection, it's continuity. You're not trying to execute a flawless plan. You're trying to protect your consistency streak. Even if you do a bad version of your habit, it still wins. Why? Because you showed up. You stayed in rhythm. You built resilience. Not just when it's easy, but when it's inconvenient. That's the stuff that actually rewires your identity. Your plan is a tool, but your identity is the target. You want to become someone who always shows up, even when it's messy, even when it's late, even when the mood isn't there. Consistency is built in those off days, not the perfect ones. So here's what I want you to remember when your plan falls apart. Don't fall apart with it. Burn the plan if you need to, but keep the habit alive. If your full routine is out the window, pick the smallest version of the habit and do that. Can't journal a full page? Write 1 sentence. Can't do an hour of deep work? Focus for 5 minutes. Can't stick to the gym schedule? Do 20 jumping jacks right now. Why? Because your brain doesn't just track outcomes, it tracks identity. And every time you show up, even a tiny way, you prove, I don't skip, I adapt. So stop trying to be perfect. Start becoming unstoppable. Consistency isn't built by flawless routines. It's built by refusing to give up the habit, no matter what the day throws at you. Remember, burn the plan. Keep the habit. Chapter 4. Track it or trash it. Let's be real. If you're not tracking it, you're probably not doing it. Or, at the very least, you're doing it way less consistently than you think. We lie to ourselves. We think, yeah, I've been pretty consistent this week. But when you actually look back, you realize you skipped Monday. You sort of did something Tuesday. You forgot Wednesday. And suddenly, your consistent week was actually 2 out of 7. That's why tracking matters. Because it exposes the truth. And in self-discipline, truth is everything. When you track your actions, you take your goals out of imagination and bring them into accountability. You stop guessing. You start owning. And when you can see it, you can change it. Now here's the thing. Tracking doesn't mean obsessing. You don't need to micromanage every step or turn your life into a spreadsheet. You just need a system that shows you one thing. Did I show up today or not? That's it. Binary. Yes or no. Did you do the thing or did you break the streak? And yes, streaks matter. Not because it's some gamified gimmick, but because it taps into something deeper, identity momentum. Every time you check that box, mark that X, or log that rep, you're reinforcing the identity. I'm someone who follows through. I'm someone who doesn't break the chain. I said I'd show up, and I did. That builds pride. That builds momentum. That builds trust with yourself. And trust is the foundation of consistency. So let's talk about how to track without making a burden. Here are 3 simple ways. 1. The visual streak method. Grab a calendar. Physical or digital. Every time you do the habit, make an X. Your goal. Don't break the chain. 1 day becomes 2. 2 becomes 5. Now you've got a streak you don't want to lose. This method is crazy effective because it's visual, simple, and immediate. 2. Habit tracker apps. If you like digital systems, use an app like Habit, Streaks, or Done. They let you track multiple habits, set reminders, and give you stats. It's clean, fast, and mobile. And if you're already on your phone 100 times a day, you might as well make one of those taps meaningful. 3. The one-line journal. Every night, write a single line. Something like, worked out, 20 minutes. Didn't want to write, but I wrote 1 page. You don't need to write a novel, just a receipt for your effort. The method you choose isn't what matters. What matters is that you see the truth daily. Because without tracking, your brain will always exaggerate effort and underestimate inconsistency. It'll tell you you're doing more than you are. It'll make you feel like you're mostly on track when you're actually drifting. And consistency doesn't survive in that kind of fog. Now let's talk about what to track. Don't try to track everything. Start with the one habit you most want to be consistent with. The one thing you keep saying is important. Start there. Once that becomes automatic, layer in more. And here's a tip. Don't track results, track actions. You can't control if you lose 10 pounds this month, but you can control if you work out for 20 minutes today. You can't force your business to blow up this week, but you can control if you posted content or reached out to leads. Track what you can control. Track what builds the streak. Because once you get honest with yourself daily, you'll start showing up differently. You'll see the days you were slipping. You'll catch the moments where the negotiator almost won. And you'll have proof, real, personal proof, that you're either building or breaking your discipline. So if you're serious about consistency, here's the rule. Track it or trash it. No more guessing. No more vague, I've been doing pretty good. Show yourself the data. Face the scoreboard. Then let that scoreboard keep you in the game. Chapter 5, You versus You. Stay in the fight. Let's get one thing clear. Your biggest enemy is not time. It's not your job. It's not other people. It's you. The voice in your head. The doubt. The delay. The comfort. The excuses. That's the opponent. And it lives inside you 24/7. This chapter isn't about motivation. It's about war. You versus you. Every single day. Because consistency is a fight. A mental, emotional, sometimes physical fight against your own resistance. One voice says, let's go. The other says, you've done enough. One says, stick to the plan. The other whispers, you can skip just this once. One voice wants to grow. The other wants to stay safe. And the truth is, you don't win that battle once. You win it every day. The biggest mistake people make, they think that once they build some momentum, the resistance goes away. It doesn't. It just gets sneakier. At first, it screams, you can't do this. Later, it says, you've been working hard, take it easy. At first, it makes you doubt. Later, it makes you settle. That's why you have to stay sharp. Not just in action, but in mindset. You have to keep choosing progress over comfort, discipline over mood, commitment over convenience. And no, it won't always be exciting. You'll have days where everything in you says, not today. You'll have moments where you wonder if it's even worth it. But that's when you lean in harder. That's when you prove who's really in control. Because listen, anyone can show up when it's easy. Anyone can be consistent when the schedule's clear, the mood is right, the gym is open, the energy's high. But real discipline? It shows up when everything's stacked against it. And that's where identity is forged. Every time you override your excuses, you build trust with yourself. And that self-trust? That's the fuel. That's the foundation. Because it's hard to stay consistent when you don't believe your own words. It's hard to keep going when every time you set a goal, part of you rolls your eyes. So stop breaking promises to yourself. Treat your standards like non-negotiables. Treat your goals like contracts. Treat every decision like a vote for the future version of you. No more, I'll see how I feel. No more, I'll start next week. No more, I'll just skip today. You're in the ring now, and it's you versus you. You're going to take hits. You're going to get knocked down, but you do not tap out. You adjust. You adapt. You get back up. You stay in the fight. Because the only difference between the person who succeeds and the person who stays stuck is that the successful one kept showing up when it got hard. They didn't always win the day, but they never surrendered the war. So whatever you're battling right now, inconsistency, excuses, setbacks, doubts, remember this. You are your only competition. You are your only solution. You are your only way forward. And every time you choose discipline over doubt, every time you push through instead of pulling back, you take another step toward becoming unstoppable. Stay in the fight. Chapter 6. Build unbreakable identity. You've shown up. You've pushed through the resistance. You track your actions, fought your excuses, and kept the habit alive. Now it's time for the final piece, and honestly, the most important one, your identity. Because the secret to long-term consistency, it's not willpower. It's not better hacks or systems. It's who you believe you are. People act in alignment with their identity, not their goals, not their dreams, not their hype. Your behavior always follows your beliefs about yourself. So if deep down you see yourself as lazy, undisciplined, inconsistent, a starter who never finishes, you will keep proving that version of you right, over and over again, even if you want to change. But here's the good news. Identity is not fixed. You can rewrite it. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it. Every time you keep a promise you used to break. Every time you choose discipline over excuses. You're casting a vote for the version of yourself you want to become. And the more votes you cast, the stronger that identity becomes. Until one day, it's not hard anymore. It's just who you are. You're not trying to be consistent. You're just consistent. It's part of you now. But here's where people get stuck. They keep waiting for the identity shift to happen after they've been consistent long enough. No, it starts now. It starts with choosing to believe something different. You don't need permission. You don't need perfection. You just need repetition. So stop calling yourself undisciplined. Stop saying, I always fall off. Stop reinforcing the old story. And start declaring the new one. I'm the kind of person who does what they say. I show up, even when it's hard. I don't negotiate with excuses. I finish what I start. Say it, believe it, back it up with action, and repeat. Because your words shape your focus. Your focus shapes your behavior, and your behavior shapes your reality. This is how you build unbreakable identity, not by chasing motivation, but by training your mind to expect more from yourself and deliver. This version of you isn't perfect. It doesn't need to be. This version is relentless, resilient, rooted. It doesn't crumble after a missed day. It doesn't depend on the perfect plan. It doesn't chase results. It builds rhythm. It keeps showing up, day by day, rep by rep, win by win. Because when identity and consistency align, you become unstoppable. So here's the challenge going forward. Whatever you're working toward, fitness, focus, business, discipline, self-respect, stop asking, how can I stay motivated? Start asking, what would the consistent version of me do right now? Then do that, even if it's small, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's the last thing you feel like doing. Because that one decision, repeated enough times, becomes your identity. And once you own that identity, everything changes. So stop trying to force consistency forever. Just force it today, then do it again tomorrow, and again after that, until it's no longer something you do. It's who you are. You don't need more time. You don't need better conditions. You don't need to feel ready. You need to make a decision that from now on, you show up, whether you feel like it or not, whether it's perfect or messy, whether it's day 1 or day 100. Because when you stop negotiating, when you make discipline part of your identity, when you force it long enough to become it, that's when everything changes. Remember, you don't rise to your level of motivation. You fall to the strength of your habits. And your habits are only as strong as your ability to show up every single day. Force yourself to be consistent. Then one day, you won't have to force it at all.